everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and with me, as always, are my misogynistic co-hosts, Suze, also known as @SuzeCreamy, and Ashley, also known as @AshLaughs79. And with us also is our young Jamie. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm aight.
I'm just dandy. I'm just dandy today.
I'm
Fuck
swell.
dandy. Swell. That's a good word.
That's a good one.
I like that one.
I noticed
I'm gonna
nobody's
steal
using
that.
excellent anymore.
I
Well,
know.
We got to be careful.
Been
No, Ashley
censored.
ruined it.
Yeah.
We censored that word. That word's not allowed anymore.
Self-censoring.
Fuck you, excellent.
So tonight we have a special guest, but it's somebody that's always with us. So we actually have young Jamie as our guest tonight. And
Whoop.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Hey, welcome. Welcome, young Jamie.
I'm guest Jamie. Nice to meet you.
and we thought it would be fun to have him as our guest because as most people know that listen to the podcast, he has his own channel called Perception Correction on Rumble, YouTube, and then also his X or Twitter page, whatever you call it. And he does a lot of really interesting work on things like secret societies. And this episode is actually inspired by Ashley because we were having a conversation one day about it. And she had mentioned that she knew very little about one particular secret society.
All of them.
And
I know nothing.
Yeah.
I know nothing too.
You're being
Perfect.
generous. You're being so generous. I'm a dum-dum. I know nothing.
Basically,
You're welcome, everyone.
Basically, young Jamie is going to have to explain it to us like we're alone in our car wearing a mask.
Yep.
Perfect.
We know nothing.
And so I thought it was a good idea to have Jamie on, or his real name is Dave. The Jamie thing is a joke, as everybody knows. But I thought it would be a good idea to have him on and let him explain this to everybody because it's not exactly the kind of woo-woo mystical weirdness that people think that it is. And I specifically would point out the Illuminati. So on his channel, he actually points out, their origins and how they started out as just regular everyday people. So I thought it would be cool because so many people have this weird idea of the Illuminati and how, it's this big mystical thing. And that's not to say that they don't do some weird shit. Them and every other elite, but they are regular people and there is a start to this. So with that all said, I am going to hand it over to young Jamie.
Sounds like it's time for a PowerPoint if nobody knows nothing.
Fantastic.
This is my first ever PowerPoint, so it's the content that matters, not the looks of it.
Obviously.
It's
Okay.
beautiful.
Right? I chose the bee
I was
theme
going to say.
because the
Well,
Illuminati,
that is very fitting.
right? Because the Illuminati once wanted a potential name for themselves before the Illuminati was the Society of Bees.
Mhm.
Oh,
Fucking losers. Good thing they didn't go with that name.
Fucking losers.
Right?
the
All right.
Illuminati is definitely more mystical sounding. That's for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They would have gotten nowhere if they stuck with the Society of Bees. Come on. All right. So there's our first slide. Boom. Next slide. Oh, what a fade out. Check it out. All right. So we're gonna learn about the tools that we should know about that these secret societies use, and how they apply them, and how they fuck with us on a day-to-day basis for hundreds and thousands of years by now, or for now. And one of them is the Hegelian dialectic. What that is a formula here that is thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis. So David Icke in the world has turned this into a more palatable thing called problem plus reaction equals solution. The Hegelian dialectic thing was coined or created by a guy by the name of Friedrich Hegel. He was a German philosopher born in 1770, died in 1831. Now, instead of me explaining to you further on the dialectic and whatnot, I thought it'd be best if we get our friend Mr. Ike to present it to us.
Oh.
Over here, we have Mr. Ike that's going to tell us all about it.
And what we saw in the First World War and the Second World War were massive global examples of problem, reaction, solution, which work like this. The problem's created secretly. You then use the media, which isn't difficult, to wind up public opinion in relation to your manufactured problem to the point where public opinion utters the classic words, something must be done, this can't go on, which is always followed by, give my power away, what are they going to do about it? And at that point, those who created the problem and got someone else to be blamed for it wound up that public reaction, then openly in the public arena, in the parliaments of the world, in the newspapers and on the television, offer the solutions to the problems they have created. And in doing so, they get vast numbers of people to demand what they want to do anyway. For instance, if you want more cameras in the streets, crikey, they're going up all over the place in Britain. If you want more cameras in the streets, you want a more armed police force, you want more authoritarian laws, greater erosions of freedom, and you want the public to demand you do it, then get the public frightened of crime. Either let society break down so there is more crime, or emphasize crime to be worse than it really is in some areas. Get people frightened, and the first thing people do when they're in fear about something is they look for someone out there to protect them from what they're frightened of.
Wow.
Thoughts, everyone?
That's interesting. And in particular, the part where he says, basically like let society go to crap and allow the crime to rise and all of that, because that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Correct.
True. Very true.
Like crime is at an all-time high. People are just walking in to places and stealing whatever they want, and there's no repercussions.
Okay, and let's look at the COVID example, for example, right? Like they instilled all this fear at the beginning so that society would demand a vaccine. You need to give us this vaccine to protect ourselves. Here you go. Oh,
well,
yeah,
and begging for lockdowns. People were begging for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, someone like Trudeau calls an election because he knows that's a hot ticket item to use for, one of his talking points, about the lockdowns or the vaccines or what have you. It makes the people who are against it the enemy, and then they grab more power just like that.
Yeah.
Fuckers.
I agree. And then in those lockdowns, their buddies that are usually the ones that are donating money for their campaigns and stuff on the political aspect of it all. They're also invested in stores and stuff that just got richer.
Mm-hmm.
All the big box stores and stuff like that. All the banks just ended up with more money and more people in debt because they couldn't work. That's their friends getting richer.
Yep.
Selling the stickers and the visors and the masks and the the hand sanitizer.
Good old Dougie Ford got real rich off those social distance stickers.
Sure did.
And then an example that I mentioned on the Big Puff podcast of this that is like written down on record dates back to World War I, where the president of the U.S. declared neutrality in the war. But in a documented conversation, his sidekick, his advisor, Colonel House, which has documented links to the Rothschilds, was trying to find a way to get the U.S. in the war because money is going to go to the bankers if they enter the war, and that's what Rothschilds are. So there's a documented conversation between Colonel Grey, the Foreign Secretary of England, where he says, "What will Americans do if Germans sink an ocean liner with American passengers on board?" Colonel House responds, which is also a member of Cecil Rhodes's Round Table, and later on goes on to create the Council on Foreign Relations. Colonel House responds, "I believe that a flame of indignation would sweep the United States, and that by itself would be sufficient to carry us into war." So then on May 7th, 1915, an ocean liner called the Lusitania was sunk, killing 1,200 people around-ish. And then there's this newspaper clipping that exists of actual, like a German ad taken out in the New York Times warning people not to get on that ship because it's been warned that it's going to travel through waters that are where there's war happening. And if a vessel of the American nature goes through there, you've been warned it's going to get shot down. And it did.
Oh, wow.
That's wild.
Right?
Crazy.
So there's that. So then continuing this list, control of perception with this equation in mind, control of information equals control of perception equals control of behavior equals control of society. So I guess that would stem back to media. And someone mentioned a good example of it when we were talking earlier today. I can't remember who it was. January 6th.
That was me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way to go, Ash.
So you mentioned a great example of that where like those videotapes of people walking through the ropes all like calm and collectively, those weren't shown in the package, in like the clip packages when like, I don't know, like the committee was doing their investigation or people were going to trial. It was just nothing but weapons swinging and people getting hurt. And it just made it seem like an actual riot. And some people took in that media and actually behaved in such a manner where January 6th was an actual riot where it was extremely dangerous and thousands of people rioted.
Even the people who died that day, there were 2 people who died, and it didn't have anything to do with the actual, I'm doing air quotes here, but insurrectionists.
Right.
But they talk about it as if it was caused by the air quotes insurrectionists, and there they have their talking point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then we have 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Also, David Icke coined this the totalitarian tiptoe, which I guess is just it's probably been going on forever, where a government tries to take however many steps forward on a policy. They encounter resistance, but then instead of taking those 2 steps back to go back to where they were, they kind of only take 1 step back and keep something still going. Like, for example, in the States, when Timothy McVeigh bombed that one building, they pretty much tried to pass what was the Patriot Act back then, but they encountered resistance. So they got like a little bit of the way there, but then when 9/11 happened, full-blown Patriot Act came into effect.
Right.
Well, and also like during the Freedom Convoy, when Freedom Convoy went in and they took away the mandates, but they still kept intact the travel mandate from Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
How about when taxation began? That was only supposed to be during a war. And here we are today, still being taxed
here.
to shit.
Yeah, and me not knowing like too much about taxation and like the history of it, but whatnot, like you can guarantee you that at one point they were like, okay, it's only ever going to be this one tax.
Yep.
Yep.
And it was time limited, like Trudeau likes to say. Not that he said this, but it was, I don't know which war it was. World War I or World War II or whatever. But basically they instituted taxation so that we could help out with the war effort. And then they just never clawed it back, of course.
Yep. And then the last one is your infiltration, subversion, inversion. I kind of made that one up. I don't think I've read that anywhere. But to me, it just reminds me of, what was that KGB defector? Bezmenov?
Yes.
Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah, and just how like people will infiltrate, let's say, a society or a government or a country, pretending they're gonna take on their traditions, their culture, and everything. But then they get into positions of like teaching and stuff where they can like affect behavior and mind and like the youth growing up. And then next thing you know, however many years later, it's a complete inversion of what it was meant to be. So. So that's that. I'm about to have a Joe Biden moment. My notes say next slide, and I was about to say next slide. All right. All right. So a lot of people like to start off the stories either with like Freemasons or the Illuminati and whatnot, but not everybody. But there are some people that start with the Sabbateans. And so let's start there, because not a lot of people start with this group of people. And I think they're just as important as everyone else. So meet this guy, Sabbatai Zevi. He was born in 1626 to wealthy parents living in Anatolia, which surrounded most of Asia Minor and Turkey. Fast forward to 1666. Like, I'm not going to go through these people's too much through their life and whatnot. You can just find that shit on my channel. We'll keep try to keep all the interesting stuff flowing here. Fast forward to 1666, Zevi is currently a Kabbalist rabbi. At this point, he decides to declare himself the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. Sounds good. Zevi and his followers came to be called Sabbateans. Regardless, he was reportedly a charismatic leader, and in a rapid pace, he obtained half of the Earth's Jewish population as his followers. Members of his little cult thingy here were forbidden to marry outside of their cult. There was even a system put in place to keep children unaware of what the cult was really about until they reached a certain age that deemed them trustworthy. Zevi and his followers practiced an inverted form of religious practice. That inverted thing is going to be quite the theme throughout this presentation. They believed by breaking old Jewish laws and traditions, the new Messiah could more easily lift them up to redemption. So they feasted during fast days, they ate food forbidden by Jewish dietary law, and believed in reincarnation. Another aspect of Sabbateans involves secrecy. Yes, someone going to say something?
I do actually have a question since you asked.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the name Sabbatean come from?
That guy's name was Sabbatai.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Last name Zevi, and somehow it's become Sabbateans.
So it's from his name then.
Yeah, exactly. So then this guy over here wrote a book on that whole situation. His name's Robert Seffer, anthropologist, author, researcher, knows his shit on the topic. And his quote after studying that whole religion or cult, I guess, stood out to me. It was, "This theme of a secret, hidden, or occult identity became a part of the evolving religious philosophy. In essence, a true act cannot be committed publicly before the eyes of the world. Like the true faith, the true act was concealed, for only through concealment could it negate the falsehood of what is explicit. Through a revolution of values, what was formerly sacred became profane, and what was formerly profane became sacred." So it's just, I don't know, just hiding your true intentions, which to me, just a lot of politicians do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is this also like the is this also like how they always kind of tell us what they're doing, but they do it in a way that it's concealed?
That way too. Or if you just stick in your head of like, you're literally going to do the opposite. Like, I don't know, what's an example? Black Lives Matter, except when you mention, okay, white lives too, but they're like, no, then all lives matter is not okay. But here you are wanting every human to have a better life, but no. Like it's so ass backwards.
Or even the idea that during COVID, it was shown that COVID actually affected Black people worse than white
because
people.
COVID is racist.
And,
COVID,
right? But they actually wouldn't say that out loud. Doctors wouldn't say it because that is racist. But it's like, wouldn't you want to save people's lives, especially Black people, if you're, going for the whole Black Lives Matter thing? Isn't that kind of important?
Right.
Anyways.
I guess even with the EV thing, and then like the whole climate cult, how they leave out what is it, like the factories where they have to make those batteries, which is just like a whole bunch of children farming in those factories for the minerals and stuff.
The cobalt mines,
right? And it's that's so much better for the environment. And this is how we're making sure the Earth is here for a much longer period of time. Meanwhile, look what we're doing to achieve this. Like that's ass backwards.
Yeah, you don't hear Greta bitching about that.
Right.
Yeah. And we're destroying the Earth of its most precious metals to create those batteries, but nobody talks about that either.
No, just for the agenda.
Yeah.
So yet again, let's remember this premise. Sabbateanism was not a form of Judaism, but an inversion of everything that common Judaism stood for. Zevi even encouraged and told his followers to celebrate acts of evil and argued for feelings of guilt to be ignored. Zevi was expelled from Jerusalem by rabbinical leaders due to his unorthodox views. And then to continue what happened, or talking about what happened to him, I would like to play a clip from one of my videos, if that's all right.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Zevi ended up finding support from the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. However, the rate at which Zevi's faction grew quickly made the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire uneasy. At this point, the Sultan presented Zevi with an ultimatum: your head or the turban. Some other researchers and authors say the Sultan threatened Zevi with torture. Regardless, the test was, If Zevi truly was the Messiah, he can just resurrect himself and shouldn't be scared of being beheaded, tortured, or killed. The turban option meant he had to convert to Islam if he was passing on the beheading or torture offer. To the dismay of his followers, Zevi became a Muslim and took the name of Aziz Mehmed Effendi. Some supporters still managed to turn this negative into a positive, and since they believed Zevi was the new Messiah, they foresaw this news as an opportunity to merge the two religions. When Zevi chose to convert to Islam, around 300 families part of the Sabbatean cult decided to do so as well. Well, just in theory, they secretly were still going to be Sabbatean. These people notably became powerful in the politics and business of Salonika, today called Thessalonica or Thessaloniki in Greek Macedonia in the southern Balkans. Salonika was a major center for Freemasonry and the birthplace of the Young Turk movement, which overthrew the Ottoman Islamic rule in Turkey. But that's me getting ahead of myself, let's stay focused. They continued to practice the goals and rituals of Sabbateanism behind an Islamic disguise and became known as the Donmeh, which means to turn, which is ironic because their turn to Islam was a fake one. Many research and authors have concluded that Sabbateanism was a modern version of the religion of Sumer and Babylon and can be likened in its beliefs and sacrificial practices to today's Satanism because in many ways, it is today's Satanism. Zevi passed away in 1676. All right. So like all of that's already... Sorry, go ahead.
That mask thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Can we
Right?
just talk about that for a second?
Please
What happened
do.
to Hermione?
The mouth was moving and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fucked up. That was creepy.
And you think that's not what they're doing with Biden for the next debate?
Shit. No
For
shit.
sure.
Like whoever's listening to this, if you didn't notice the mask thing, you need to rewind.
Yeah,
That
I
is some
watched that twice
shit.
today.
Wow.
3 times.
So that's
Carry on.
That's bonkers. Yeah. And in the 1600s, that was set in right there. You already had people going to another part of the world and pretending to be another religion while secretly still being the religion that they were originally got in trouble for being. So like the cauldron is already brewing for shit to go down like in a part of the world, and we're already at the 1600s. And then when they mentioned how the religion that they copied can be traced back to Sumer and stuff like that. So if you go back to Sumer, that's like pretty much the beginning of like thousands of years ago, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. Any other questions or anything?
Well, this was like this Sabbatean Zevi, whatever his name is. He was like basically doing his own version of Project Bluebeam, only just really shitty because he had no tech.
Yeah.
Like he was pretending to be the Messiah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
I know, like MK Ultra totally just pervades this whole thing. You know,
Right?
the seedlings of it. And
Yeah.
it's crazy to me when I was watching all of your videos again today, Dave. Like I just everything gets so nicely tied together when you start thinking about it all, and how it actually makes me feel a little bit better in a way, because it explains what we're dealing with a little bit better. It kind of puts it in a little more of a horrific package, but it starts to make a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah, when you can actually connect the dots and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
we're being lied to on like the scale of it is just wow.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then like the tactics back then, you didn't have a telephone or a radio or TV. So you just had like a more primitive way of getting the job done as far as like your overthrow and like your takeover of either a government, a country, an area or whatever.
Mhm.
Right. I have this tablet and it's chiseled by.
So that's funny. So carrying along, Jacob Frank Sabotage Zevi has died in our story, but the movement's leadership was taken over by, as much as I hate to say it, Polish-born Jacob Frank, who claimed to be the reincarnation of Zevi, as well as of course, and as well as the biblical patriarch Jacob. And he said this to the Donman people as he encountered them traveling through Turkey as a salesman. So right now he's encountered the people that have turned fakely their religion previously under Sabotage Zevi, and now he's encountered them and has decided to tell them he's the reincarnation of their boy. Right. So that's where we are in the story. So adopting the practice of posing as something one is not, Frank persuaded his followers that they needed to pose as Christians in order to preserve themselves. So remember this when we get to the Illuminati section too. Frank taught that the overthrow and destruction of society was the only way to save mankind. Nice guy. Remember when we get to the Illuminati. Sabbateans under Frank's leadership became known as Sabbatean Frankists. So they expanded their name there. Sabbatean Frankists used a belief system that neglected the strict Judaic rules, including those on decency and even wife swapping. Incest and sex orgies were permitted. Do what thou wilt was preached by Frank, along with the Gnostic view the Gnostic view that the Old Testament God was evil, and that the best way to imitate the true God was to breach every moral code. Right. So then he later explained that in order to become free, one must throw off all conventions. He slept with certain members of his flock, including his daughter, Eva Frank.
Oh, God.
Right. He also practiced this philosophy by converting both Islam and Catholicism. So if you think about it now, if we're in the 1700s, you have the people that converted falsely to being Muslim in the previous century. You have these guys converting to be Catholic. So like this has been going on for quite the while of people secretly to the public or to plain view being something like visible one way, but meanwhile behind closed doors being something else.
Just subverting all the religions.
Right.
Oh, wow.
It's actually super creepy to hear this, because even like him having sex with his daughter and like all the weird sex stuff, and then posing as Christians. I'm like, all I'm thinking about is all the weird shit that happens in Hollywood, and how every award show, like they do all these like demonic performances, and then at every award show they're like, I'd like to thank God.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, what?
Right.
Like
To the
you just
point.
sacrificed somebody on stage, but thank you, God.
Thank you, God, for letting me sacrifice that person.
Right?
100%.
So
100
messed up.
So that being said, pedophilia, Satanism, human sacrifice went wherever Sabbatean Frankists went. Frank believed that if salvation can be brought upon by purity, it can be also achieved through sin. The process of being one thing while in fact being something else became the calling card of the Sabbatean Frankists. Frank was also responsible for the infiltration of the Vatican and the Roman Church. Many dogma turned again, this time to Roman Catholicism, with the intentions of taking over the power structure. Right. Thoughts?
I'm just kind of blown away.
I was just going to say the same thing.
And actually, question.
Mhm.
So, for people watching, where, like, if they wanted to validate these facts, where is this stuff documented?
His writings himself, Jacob Frank's writings himself. There's a handful of rabbis that have written on the situation, and to the point where even some of them like defend this.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And try to paint it in such a nice picture where like you can tell like maybe they're those Sabbatean Frankists that ended up getting that job in print and are trying to save face for the situation.
Wow.
It's
Wild.
interesting too, because you think about how difficult it is to stay disciplined and be a good person. There are temptations to be sinful, you know, and so if you can talk about salvation through being sinful, that would appeal to a lot more people, because that's way easier to do than it is to actually stay on the straight and narrow and be like a good person. And
Well
know.
said.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Well said indeed. But yeah, and then like Sabbatai even went down, like he's down in the Jew, like he's down in the Jewish faith in like religious texts. Like he's not just some, yeah, like he's not a guy off the street that like, I don't know, just made it into like the magazine and like wasn't actually like he's part of the text.
wow.
So
He held weight. His voice held weight.
yeah. At one point that like that one stat that was thrown out that about half the Jewish population at one point in the 1600s was following him, like that's fact.
Gee.
Crazy.
Right. So to recap, the Donma in Turkey officially converted to Islam in 1683 and the Frankists in Europe to Catholicism in 1759. So that's just reminding ourselves there that you already have people already around Europe and other parts of that continent or that part of the world that are already pretending to be stuff there isn't. The purpose of these conversions was to take over and destroy these faiths. Frank, though, was jailed in 1760, which is a perfect time to break off into another timeline / storyline. Enter these motherfuckers.
Dun, dun, dun.
The Bavarian Illuminati. That guy on the left is Adam Weishaupt. He's the creator of. We can factually say the Illuminati were first publicly created or publicly acknowledged on May 1st, 1776. Weishaupt himself was born on February 6, 1748 in Ingolstadt, Germany, today part of Munich, then capital of German state Bavaria. Adam's father passed away when he was 5, leaving him in the care of his godfather, Johann Adam Friar von Ickstadt. Like with the other people, we're not going to spend a lot of time on their early life. I do that in my video, so just go check that shit out there. His godfather's his godfather's library introduced him to radical writers such as Rousseau and Voltaire. At age 7, he was enrolled in a Jesuit school and got in trouble often because of his love of free expression and youthful ideals. And then fast forward to 1775, Adam Weishaupt was named professor of law at Ingolstadt University. So right there, he's already at a position where he can start affecting minds directly in his area, which was a position that was only held by members of the Jesuits prior to him. Adam being a Protestant, in 1768, he converted from being Jesuit, possibly one of those fake conversions if he's hanging out with Sabbateans, but we'll get to that. And his promotion further enraged authorities and pitted the young idealist against traditional faculty members, many of them Jesuits. Okay, so let's remember where we are in Adam's timeline right now. It's 1775. He's a professor of law. I mention this because if someone is a professor of law and decides to go rogue, he's going to influence minds and impact people around him. But also around this time, Weishaupt was also initiated into Freemasonry. And as a student of ancient esoteric knowledge, he grew frustrated that no one in his lodge understood the occult significance of their own ceremonies. So the year is 1776, and we missed something important in 1773. So we're going to head back there for a second. But before we do that, questions, comments, concerns?
Concerns.
I mean, I have a lot of concerns.
I was gonna say, well, this is the whole fucking last how many hundreds of years is one massive fucking concern.
Well,
Right.
I thought, okay, something that I find interesting is the first time I ever heard about the Illuminati was through Dan Brown's books. They're like just fiction. The Da Vinci
they,
Code and Angels and Demons and Inferno. And so they were some of my favorite books back in the day because I had just finished university and I'd spent, 4 years reading for not pleasure. And man, oh man, like there were some really dry reads that I had. And when I got out of university, that was my first book, Da Vinci Code, that I picked up. And it was fun again. But there was a lot of stuff peppered in about the Illuminati and, these secret societies. And so I thought I would just kind of look back and see what was said about his books, because I don't really remember from back then. But one I found interesting was Inferno, released in 2013. This novel is the 4th book in the Robert Langdon series. The story features the Illuminati as a key player in a conspiracy to prevent a catastrophic event. The novel explores the idea that the Illuminati is still active and working to bring about a new world order.
I agree with the world order part, but like them trying to prevent a catastrophic event?
Well, I mean, this is fiction, right? But I
Right.
find that like an interesting thing that he was even talking about that back then. And then if you think about the catastrophic event that we just went through, the pandemic,
True.
I don't know. I just found that interesting, and I'm not saying that what he wrote was correct. He was just putting it into the ether, and probably a bit of a what do you call that? What's that
Foreshadowing?
word? No, but when you a limited hangout, right?
Right.
You just kind of talk
Like
about
you-
it like like you're in the know, but you're actually subverting what the reality of the Illuminati actually is. Anyways,
Well put. I also think for events nowadays, a lot of people will drop that, like, and why so many people are confused as to like who the Illuminati actually was. People will just drop the word Illuminati just when referring to like an unknown group of people behind the scenes that probably pulled the strings to make something happen. But even though like that still applies, let's say that group does exist, they're not necessarily Illuminati. Like the World Economic Forum could have did something. The Council on Foreign Relations could have did something.
Yeah.
right,
doesn't
but
mean-
they could be subsidiaries of the Illuminati, the Freemasons, like sort of tied
like
together.
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe not completely connected, because then that's easier to spread the tendrils out.
Exactly. And then, like, as the decades go by, you have to adapt, and like, I'm sure they'll change their names as they go from this part of the world or that part of the world, or as technology changes, whatever. So just adapt with the times too. All right. So where were we here? So the timeline, we've gone back from 1776 to 1773. 1776 was when the Illuminati was created, to 1773, because Jacob Frank has just been released from prison. He's done serving his 13-year prison sentence after being arrested by the Catholic Inquisition in 1960. Upon his release, Jacob Frank heads straight for Frankfurt, Germany, and immediately creates alliances with a known Sabbatean by the name of Mayer Bauer, which is, we all know him as Mayer Rothschild, and that's the guy on the right. So that's the guy that started the Rothschild getting their dollar, getting their bank, becoming one of the most richest families in the world, if not the richest. And he's already hanging out with that Sabbatean Jacob Frank fella that we've talked about. And shortly they're going to start hanging out with Adam Weishaupt, the creator of the Illuminati. And then what made the Rothschilds make their money really quickly in the beginning was after this guy went into the banking business. He had 5 kids and he sent them to just major cities throughout Europe. And they offered immediately a feature that wasn't available in other banks, where you could deposit your gold or whatever valuables in one bank and then travel to the other city and withdraw it there. And no other banks were doing that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's
convenience.
Right. What nice guys.
Can we just fix your date here? You said 1960. That's actually 1760, right?
Correct. Unless he's some sort of alien. Correct.
Just want to make sure the listeners know that it's a typo.
Typo. Good catch. 1760. Good catch. Moving along. So let's see what Mayer Rothschild is all about. He's previously said, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." Nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Right. So now that the Weishaupts, hold on. So Adam, let's check out who Adam was influenced by. So we get a little bit of background on who's shaping his ideals and what he believes in and whatnot. So Adam was greatly influenced by a merchant simply known as Colmer. Colmer has been termed by many authors as the mysterious of mysterious men. Colmer preached an ancient form of Gnosticism called, and I'm never going to get this word right, Manichaeism. Sure. And that word had to use which had to use the word illuminated prior to the 3rd century. So pause. What is Manichaeism? Manichaeism is a dualistic religious movement founded in Persia in the 3rd century by a gentleman named Mani, who is known as the Apostle of the Light or Supreme Illuminator. Although Manichaeism was long considered a Christian heresy, it was a religion in its own right because of the coherence of its doctrines and the rigidness of its structure and institutions preserved throughout its history, a unity and unique character. Now, Mani, we're going to stick with this for a second. We're going to go religious for a solid 2 minutes here. Mani was born in southern Babylonia, now Iraq. With his annunciation at the age of 24, he obeyed a heavenly order to manifest himself publicly and to proclaim his doctrines. Thus began the new religion. From that point on, Mani preached throughout the Persian Empire, at first unhindered. He later was opposed by the king, condemned, and imprisoned. After 26 days of trials, his followers called the Passion of the Illuminator, or Mani's crucifixion. Mani delivered a final message to his disciples and died somewhere between 274 and 277. So there's that guy. And then along with those 2 words that we mentioned, there was Gnosticism. So this is where shit gets interesting. Whoa, look at that text. I didn't even put that text.
What?
Sick.
Ooh.
That computer looking text. Well, that's a fuck up. Anyways, so Gnosticism is the belief. Gnosticism is the belief that human beings contain a piece of God, the highest God, or a divine spark within themselves, which has fallen from the immaterial world into the bodies of the humans. All physical matter is subject to decay, rotting, and death. Those bodies in the material world created by an inferior being are therefore evil. Trapped in the material world but ignorant of its status, the pieces of God require knowledge, gnosis, to inform them of their true status. That knowledge must come from outside the material world, and the agent who brings it to them is their savior or redeemer. So, during the first 3 centuries of Christianity, there was no central authority until after the conversion of the Roman Emperor Constantine in 312 CE. Christian communities taught many different views in the 2nd century CE. Some groups, now collectively referred to as Gnostic Christians, claim to have access to secret knowledge about the nature of the universe, the nature of Christ, and what his appearance on earth meant to believers. Okay, so how come we don't learn about Gnosticism? Right?
That's interesting.
That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Why is this religion just left out? Why is it just considered heresy?
Yeah, it seems like a good one.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So then a lot of this next concept will start to tie in and make more sense as far as relation to these secret societies. So after the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there were many sects of Christianity. This is very different from today's denominations in that the sects differed on the actual framework of the Christianity, and modern denominations differ only on the point of views within a fairly standard framework. So I want to bring up in our story at this point one Gnostic concept that makes a lot of sense to me, and that is of Yaldabaoth, or the Demiurge. That's right. Say that word right there. Yaldabaoth.
Yeah, I'm
Oh.
not saying that.
Right. Or the Demiurge. So the Demiurge, Gnostics called the Christian deity the one true God. That's what the Gnostics called the Christian deity, the one true God. But this is where what they believe that differs from us. So in their Holy Trinity, male God was plus feminine spirit. So we got the feminine part removed, which produced a celestial offspring, the Son or Jesus, and that completed the Holy Trinity. So in this non-physical world, the equivalent of angels / demons in the Gnosis world, the Gnostic world, is archons. So the Demiurge is the being who created the world in Gnosticism. The Gnostics identified him with the God of the Old Testament. The Gnostic scriptures portray him as ignorant, malicious, and utterly inferior to the true God who sent Christ to earth to save humankind from the Demiurge's evil world. So if you think about what the God is like in the Old Testament, he's the fuck you, I'm going to flood all your shit, obey me, or you're going to go to hell. Here's my written rules. Like, he's that God, and like it's a totally different one in the New Testament as far as like behavior wise is concerned. So they believe that God in the Old Testament was the Demiurge, which, let's continue. If you're the reason an evil exists, the Christian parallel would be Satan, would it not?
Yeah.
Right. So the Demiurge to me is Satan. To a lot of people in books I've read is Satan. So now let's move up a little closer to time-wise to the great Library of Alexandria in Egypt, with its amazing collection of ancient knowledge, and history was dominated by Gnostic texts. So when we learn about that fire, we don't really get told that the majority of the shit that burned in there was Gnostic texts.
Wow.
Right. So an estimated nearly 500,000 scrolls, manuscripts, and documents were gathered from many locations, including Assyria, Greece, Persia, and India, as well as Egypt. So why was the library destroyed? To gain control of the Christian narrative. You couldn't have these people working outside that framework with their beliefs. You could have your little different variations, but they had to be inside the framework. But in 1945, 13 Gnostic texts, leather-bound, were found in a cave near Nag Hammadi, which became known as the Nag Hammadi Codex. The sealing date of these codices in the jar was dated to 400 AD, which matches up with the destruction of the Great Alexandria Library. So at a last-ditch effort, people tried to hide those things. So Yaldabaoth, or Satan, they both broke away from God, the all that is God, and wanted to mimic and usurp God by ruling over a kingdom of their own. Gnostics describe Yaldabaoth as a formless entity and a state of inverted consciousness. They also call him the foolish one. So if he is an idiot, how ass backwards our world would reflect something created by him. So now, like, think about that possibilities if like all of that is true, and like the burning of those things was to gain control of the narrative, like people could be worshiping the wrong thing. Yep.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Which leads us back to Weishaupt. How? Oh, you'll see. and who was like his influences. So Colmer, the mysterious men of all mysterious men or whatever, had learned esoteric knowledge from Egypt and Persia. Colmer himself was admired by a gentleman by the name of Cagliostro, a French court magician and a revolutionary. Cagliostro was involved in Masonic activities with the mysterious Count of Saint Germain and Venetian lover Giacomo Casanova. Okay, so the whole purpose of me going down this route is the Count of Saint Germain. Do you guys know anything about him?
No.
No.
Okay, so I have to go away from this, and we will go to the Count of Saint Germain.
I feel like he's a vampire or something. The Count.
So, cruising through this guy has been spotted throughout history, dating from like the 1600s to the 1900s.
Ooh.
This guy right here, Saint Germain, claimed to be the descendant of Comte de Saint Germain, big shot 18th century guy, ties to King Louis. I'm just going to cruise through this quickly. He appeared in the 1600s, 1700s. He never appeared to be past the age of 40. A woman left from
look at you, Sue.
See, I was right. He's a vampire.
right?
Weird.
Crushed it.
Crushed it. Nailed it.
A woman left from his balcony claiming he bit her neck. Saint Germain vanished. He left behind bottles of blood-infused wine.
Ew.
Or was it adrenochrome-infused wine?
Well,
Right.
he wasn't. He didn't look past 40, so.
Right. At party, Saint Germain was never seen eating, but he always held a glass of red liquid.
Why does that look like Tom Cruise?
It
It
is
is
from
it is Tom Cruise.
Oh, I
is
was gonna say,
Interview with the Vampire.
I'm like,
Crushed
what
it.
the fuck? That looks like Tom Cruise.
Crushed it. The guy himself once made a joke that he was over 100 years old. And then if you read this whole thing, it kind of goes into how maybe it wasn't a joke after all. Over here, he was cited in 1902. Right. So now this guy's involved somehow in the Illuminati story, which is kind of fucking weird.
This is very interesting to me because even hearing about the Gnostic stuff and the now even what you were just talking about it just reminds me a little bit of the gateway process, which I'm hoping, Tammy, that you're going to get into at some point. It's an MK Ultra project, and it makes you kind of understand the idea of if there are possibilities of
it's not an MK Ultra project. Like, it wasn't a sub project. It was one that was done all on its own.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. But still I don't know. Like, wasn't it still part of like the CIA that wanted more information about it?
Yeah, it was a U.S. Army commander that they had looking into it, but they did like an in-depth study on it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. You're right. It's very kind of reminiscent of some of the stuff that they talk about in that.
The idea that the possibility of, say, time travel or going to different areas, and I mean, if who is that, Saint Germain? I mean, if he could be alive for that long, was he time traveling? Or, I mean, this is for another day, but it's interesting. It just has sort of those sort of gleanings to them.
At this point, you could tell me anything, and I'd be like,
Like, yeah, that probably happened. Yeah,
well, okay. Like, if tomorrow they were like, just kidding, everybody can time travel, and we've had a time machine for like ever and ever, I'd be like, yeah, that's
I knew
cool.
it.
Yeah.
Fuck, like,
the thing is, like, even hearing the Library of Alexandria being burnt to a crisp and having mostly Gnostic information in there makes you wonder what kind of stuff was in there that they were trying to hide.
well, it's like all the great fires, Dave.
Right. That's another thing that we got to get on too.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a whole different rabbit hole. Whenever someone gets a chance, just type into Google and use Google the Great Fire of, and then just think of any major North American city, and you're going to find one anywhere between like 1800 and 1920.
Not even North America, worldwide. We rabbit holed this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyways.
even the Cathedral of Notre Dame just burnt down.
Yeah,
years ago.
they are literally erasing history, and they do it with fires, among other things.
Yes, pigs also, but we'll get to that another day.
Boom.
Boom. Okay, so given everything we've learned so far, let's check out this quote from Adam Weishaupt himself. The great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always covered by another name and another occupation. None is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expect little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it. Next to this, the form of a learned or literary society is best suited to our purpose. By establishing reading societies and subscription libraries, we may turn the public mind which way we will. In like manner, we must try to obtain influence in all office which have any effect either in forming or in managing or even direction the mind of man.
Sounds like the World Economic Forum.
Right? Like, this is still in play today.
100% it is. This is wild to even see this stuff. Like, and I mean, replace like the reading societies and subscriptions with the media, because that's where we're at now.
Or medicine.
Yeah.
Science.
Yep.
Science.
Follow the fucking science.
Literally in my notes, like the categories that this would fall under would be politics, banking, media, military, medicine, education, and religion.
This is absolutely wild. And the scary part too is like the great strength of our order lies in its concealment.
Right.
So creepy.
Right. So that being said, to start transitioning away from the Illuminati, I think it's a good time to check out the goals of the Illuminati side by side with the goals of communism.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Yep.
Looking
Get
forward
ready.
to this one.
Get ready. So this I took straight out of a book that I have. I just took a picture of it and uploaded it here. I didn't feel like typing shit anymore. And I couldn't really find it anywhere. Surprise, surprise. So if you can't see that well, I'll just read it out. So first, consider the basic goals of the Illuminati. 1, establish a new world order. 2, abolition of all ordered national governments. 3, abolition of inheritance. 4, abolition of private property. 5, abolition of national sovereignty and patriotism. 6, abolition of the individual home and family life. 7, abolition of all established religions.
That sounds nothing like today. Nothing.
Right?
Oh yeah, no, nothing. Not even close. Zero similarities.
Right. And then straight from Karl Marx and his Communist Manifesto, which Karl Marx was a puppet. That's another thing to get into another time. Number 1, abolition of private property. Number 2, a progressive or graduated income tax. 3, abolition of all inheritance. 4, confiscation of property of dissidents and immigrants. 5, creation of a monopolistic central bank. 6, centralize all communication and transport. 7, control over all factories and farm production. 8, central ownership of capital with deployable workforce. 9, blur the distinction between rural country and cities. 10, free public education to indoctrinate all children.
Fuck, they're really winning, aren't they?
I know. I was just
Right?
listening to this and like getting more depressed every point.
It's like tick, tick, tick.
You will own nothing and be unhappy.
Right.
I'm surprised it doesn't say eats the bugs in there.
So it's kind of, they're doing a good job.
This is why we are filled with dread from sunrise to sundown.
Yeah.
If they make me own nothing, they're going to be fucking unhappy.
Oh my god.
And I like how you guys are comparing it to like, what, 2024, and we're reading shit from like the fucking 1700s.
That's insane.
Yeah, like wake up, people.
But they'll be like, nah, it's all just coincidence. Nah.
You guys are crazy. You take your tinfoil hat off.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's yet another appropriate Weishaupt quote to go along with everything. Behold our secret. Remember that the end justifies the means. Weishaupt wrote, and that the wise ought to take all the means to do good, which the wicked take to do evil. So
the end justifies the means.
Yeah, I don't
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
For the common good, people.
Yep.
Right? If you think
Just
you
get
need to
vaccinated.
All in this together.
It's exactly where I was going.
We've got your backs.
Depopulate the planet. We're taking all the means that good, which would do to take evil, and so we're gonna have to kill some people with that vaccine, but it's for the greater good.
Yep. Gotta go into climate lockdown. It's for the greater good.
buddy that he was hanging out with, Cagliostro, ended up speaking about his experience, and then kind of became a mini whistleblower towards the end. By March 1789, this is a quote from Cagliostro. By March 1789, the 266 lodges controlled by the Grand Oriental were all Illuminized, which means just infiltrated by the Illuminati. Without knowing it, for the Freemasons in general, were not told the name of the sect that brought them these mysteries, and only a very small number were really initiated into the secret.
Whoa. So hold on here. Hold on. So many people operating as Freemasons then didn't know that they were the bad guys.
Right. And it
or
depends
part
on
of the bad guys.
Right. And depends on, like, you would find out the higher you got up in your degrees.
Right. So this is interesting because in my searches for the Picton book, I went to a very small little used bookstore in Sarnia, Ontario, and there was a guy there who I won't say his name, but he was the owner of the bookstore, and him and I got talking, and he is a very awake human being, but he is a Freemason. And I made the comment to him, like, for somebody who's very awake, I'm actually kind of shocked that you're Freemason. Like, what is your take on that? Because there's a lot of speculation and things like that amongst people that the Freemasons are the ones that are behind all of this. And he was saying something very similar, that no, like, a lot of bad people came in.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really interesting because you get a lot of over the top tinfoil hatters that go 90 on this Freemason stuff. And then this kind of flips that script.
And the thing is that Freemasonry started out with good tenets, just like religions. And so it's not so much that the religions or the Freemasonry didn't have good ideas, or even the Illuminati started out with good intentions, and then they got usurped by evil people.
Wild.
Correct. And your evil people are the people that end up printing money. But anyways, okay, we're gonna start powering through some of the shit here. Another quote from this guy, because again, it just shows that these people are fucked. Speaking sometimes in one way, sometimes in another, so that one's real purpose should remain impenetrable to one's inferior. He's talking about members of the Illuminati. Just full out lie if you have to, right? Just no ifs, ands, or buts. If you need to get the job done by lying, go ahead and lie. To close out his life, Weishaupt had lived in Gotha, Germany while in exile, where he taught philosophy at the University of Göttingen. And on November 18th, 1830, Weishaupt died. He was survived by his second wife and 5 children, the 5 children being those... Oh, no, never mind. That's somebody else. By 5 children. Prior to his death, there were reports that he prepared a revised version of the Illuminati, which under various aliases was to organize, finance, direct, and control all international organizations and groups by working their agents into executive positions at the top. The mainstream narrative would have you believe otherwise, the mainstream narrative would have you believe that the Illuminati came to an end in 1787, because in 1787, a gentleman by the name of Duke Karl Theodor issued his 3rd edict on the topic pertaining to the Illuminati, that anyone recruiting for the Illuminati or any member would be given the death penalty. So mainstream media will tell you that was the end of the Illuminati. However, not fazed by laws created against the order, Illuminati members continued to hide themselves within the ranks of Freemasonry, as we just discussed. Having successfully merged with continental Freemasonry earlier in that decade, they simply just went further underground. Check out this family tree. Their goals were advanced right on through the secret roundtables of Cecil Rhodes in the 20th century, backed by the powerhouse Frankfurt Lodge, which was under control of Hessian royalty, the Rothschilds, and their associates. In the post-Bavarian Illuminati timeline, many paths open up that show a covert continuation of the Illuminati's work through various organizations. We will be continuing on the path that leads us to North America, but if you do follow the story going more into Europe and England, I should say, you encounter such organizations as the RIIA, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, the Chatham House, the Rhodes Scholars, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberg Group, the United Nations, the House of Windsor, the House of Rothschild, plus more.
Wow.
But we're not going that direction. Well, we're getting ready to jump over in North America. So let's continue. By 1790, those that didn't embed themselves in Freemasonry simply fled to other countries while retaining their loyalty to the order's philosophy and ideals. Illuminati orders sprang up in France, Italy, England, and even America. As I mentioned, Weishaupt died in 1830. So enter these motherfuckers. It's 1832, and a gentleman by the name of William Huntington Russell has returned to Yale from his studies in Germany, and where he was. His head was filled with the philosophy of reason taught by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. That was the inventor of that dialect that we talked about at the beginning. At the University of Berlin, in Hegel's worldview, this is the guy that invented your synthesis plus antithesis, blah, blah, blah. In Hegel's worldview, the state is absolute reason and individuals must give their total obedience to it. The state has supreme rights over individuals, and individuals must recognize that their supreme duty is to the state. Sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah.
All right. So those close to Russell claim upon his return he had intentions of starting an American chapter of a German sect of a German secret society he must have found deeply interesting or even been tasked with expanding. That same year, 1832, at Yale University, William Huntington Russell and Alfonso Taft founded Skull and Bones. So that 322 that you see on the screen right there, like one of the theories is that it's the second chapter of a secret society that debuted in 1832 in the U.S. So 322, that's just one of the reasons. Many other reasons which can be found in the videos that I make. So we're not going to get into like the rituals and shit of the Skull and Bones or like too much of their history. So we're just going to go straight to some of its members, and we're going to start off with the founding fathers here. So let me just switch up them screens. Any questions, comments, concerns while I switch up screens?
You and your concerns. We got concerns.
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns, Dave.
So
There's a
many.
lot.
We don't got enough time for the amount of concerns we have.
So many concerns. So what's this guy? Oh no, wrong guy. Still,
Wrong guy.
hold on. We are going to. Oh, they move around on you.
Dave,
Okay.
was it the Sabbateans who started from Freemasonry, but then didn't? The Freemasons rejected their ideas, and so they started their own. Was it the Sabbateans, or was that the Illuminati? It was in your video, but
yeah, I would say the Illuminati, like the Adam Weishaupt guy, didn't like how the Freemasons like didn't even understand their own rituals and stuff like that. So he kind of borrowed from them and elevated it in his own mind.
right, okay.
The Sabbateans were more like, fuck, I don't like the religion that we're forced to be part of. Let me just invert it all and cause ruckus.
Okay, gotcha.
So one of the founders of Skull and Bones was this guy, William Huntington Russell, went to Yale University, co-founder of Skull and Bones. He was big in the business world, I'm going to just turbo through this right now. Big in the business world, big in the political world, but not as big as his cohort that he co-founded this shit with. That was this guy. This guy's actually the son of Alfonso Taft. We're just going to skip Alfonso Taft because we're running low on time here. So the creator of Skull and Bones gave birth to William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft was your 27th president of the United States, 10th Chief Justice of the United States, and just check out all his credentials here. United States Secretary of War.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
Right.
We're screwed.
Sure are.
Oh, it gets worse. Just wait.
It gets much worse, but we're going to take a cruise through something we didn't do before. And then, so remember infiltrating all the aspects of society that can control mind or control the mind, like your education, that whole like thing that we covered before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's go to Skull and Bones, and we're just going to
What a
cruise
lovely name.
through, right?
Right?
Random guys. Dana Milbank, class of 1990, writer, Washington Post. Skull and Bones.
Wapo.
Daniel Coit Gilman. There's a bigger picture coming up of him. What did this guy do? He was the treasurer of the Russell Trust Association that the Skull and Bones incorporated into a business. Okay, no problem. Keep it within the family. Frederick Baldwin Adams Jr. over here, St. Paul School, Yale University, Bibliophile. Ellen. Okay, so parents: Ellen Walters Delano Roosevelt family relation.
Oh.
Right. So there's a connection to another president. Frederick Wallace Smith, class of 1966. Often forgotten Boltzmann. He just founded FedEx. That's all he
Come
did.
on.
Multi-billion-dollar
Wow.
company. John McCain's potential president cabinet, blah, blah. Moving along, George Herbert Walker Bush, class of 1948.
He looks pretty good there.
Right. Director of CIA, vice president to Ronald Reagan,
Fuck.
ambassador to communist China. No big deal. George W. Bush, 1968, president, 9/11. You know the whole deal. Skull and Bones. Harry Payne Whitney. Just that Payne and Whitney family. If you look into their history, they just Hudson Bay and Mining Company. They're just own industry as far as like metal and one of those industrial families.
Perfect.
Right. Henry Pomeroy Davison in 1909 became a senior partner at JP and Morgan.
Oh, wow.
Was part of the secretive meeting on Jekyll Island that gave birth to the Federal Reserve. It's all skull and bones. James W. Wadsworth, U.S. House of Representatives, New York State Comptroller, New York State Assembly, Livingston County, politics. John Kerry.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, which actually he actually ran against Bush for president that one year. So
He looks
either
like a
one that would have
murderer.
won.
Two sides of the same coin. I've been trying to tell everybody this.
Yep.
Right.
He looks like a mass murderer, just saying.
Mick George Bundy, one of JFK's wise men, may have relied on his big brother to help him to get into Skull and Bones. William Bundy, who graduated class here, went on to serve as State Department liaison official, notably during the Pay of Pigs invasion. So at one point, this guy, I can't remember if it was him or his brother, held the position of whatever government official is responsible for what information the president gets, like a morning brief. So you can choose to hold back or add on whatever information you want if you're in that position, technically.
Dang.
Yeah. Skull and Bones. Percy Rockefeller. Enough said. Skull and Bones.
Dave, can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
Because I feel like that you're rushing through this and like you feel like you're on a time crunch. And I know it's because of me because I need to finish it by a certain time. So I have just extended my time to 8:15. FYI.
Woo.
Awesome.
Sick.
Okay, so you can breathe a little bit.
All right. Let's breathe. Potter Stewart.
Okay, not that much breathing.
Class of 1937. He was a Supreme Court justice. Skull and Bones.
Supreme Court Justice. Perfect.
Yep. Stephen A. Schwartzman. Blackstone Group, creator of $11.9 billion as of March 2017.
Wow.
No big deal.
No big
Can
deal.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there any of these guys that are Canadian?
Skull and Bonesman? I don't think so, but I'm not going to say no.
Because that would be worth a look into. But also something I've noticed too is many of them were part of Yale, and Yale did MK Ultra experiments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah,
I'm
so
shutting-
maybe there's a Canadian contingent.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Hmm.
Harriman, this guy was just like credited for like establishing pretty much like the neocon thing in the 1900s. If you look at what he did, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs for John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, Assistant Secretary of State for East Indian and Pacific Affairs, 48th Governor of New York, 11th United States Secretary of Commerce. So, yep, politics. This Wadsworth character, I feel like that's a double. Walter Camp, he invented football. Inventor of football, Skull and Bones.
Interesting.
Right. Whitney family, again, just loaded families. I think we've gone through them all. So, where are we at here? We've talked about those people. So now if we cruise up closer to in time, we will end up at something called the Council on Foreign Relations. Questions, comments, concerns? Questions, comments, concerns?
All the concerns.
Right.
I'm more concerned in this episode than I was going into this episode today.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
concern you can possibly think of, that's what we're thinking.
Hmm.
So
I will be riddled with anxiety all night about this.
For the
I
rest
have
of my days.
exponential dread.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
God.
So then the Council on Foreign Relations gets created by, if you remember in the beginning, the example of problem reaction solution of a guy named Colonel House talking to someone in England and then them pretty much coordinating the sinking of a ship to get the US to join the war.
Mhm.
Yeah, it got created by that guy. Seems like a nice guy.
Great.
We're going to cruise through the Council on Foreign Relations Wikipedia page just for names. A quick cruise. Oh, Rockefeller, Woodrow Wilson,
Come on.
Council. No, what did that guy do again? He started the Federal Reserve or signed it into thing. Colonel House. And then we're going to get to someone very important. Anyways, there is a Henry Kissinger somewhere on this page. Henry Kissinger is important because then if you segue this into today, which is your World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab's three mentors were leading proponents of a one world government, and one of his three mentors was Henry Kissinger.
Lovely.
No.
For fuck's sake.
You don't say.
Right?
I'm getting angry inside.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So that was my quick version way of bringing this up to nowadays time. And then I guess I would like to finish it off with a 1 minute and 30-second clip I have of an OG in this field.
An OG.
Yeah. His name, Jordan Maxwell.
Is this any relation to Robert Maxwell?
No.
Okay.
This is a good guy.
I was about to be
They
upset.
create chaos
As a matter
and
of
they
fact,
create control.
over the world headquarters in Switzerland of the World Masonic Headquarters for World Freemasonry, over the door is Ordo ab Chao, which is Latin for order out of chaos. And all Freemasons know that term, Ordo ab Chao. Order out of chaos. The concept is to create chaos, to create the problems. Then while the people are frightened to death of all the crime and everything that seems to be out of control, a riotous situation, the government then moves in with justification. In order to put down this terrible chaos, they must have full power of the military, full obedience of the people to give the government full power to do whatever they want. That's why we're having all over the world wars, riots, bloodshed, famines, all kinds of things happening around the world. It's being manipulated. It's being orchestrated, not just for Los
It's
Angeles.
conflict control.
Conflict control.
There's been more wars since the creation of the United Nations.
People need to wake up and discover who is running their government, what the symbols of government mean, what these emblems mean. When they see the national coat of arms, the flags, the emblems, the seals, the symbols, all of these things mean something. Educate yourself. Find out where it came from. That's the only hope I see for the human race, is the human race itself waking up to find.
That's all.
Oh my God. Dread, nothing but dread.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking dread.
So how do we stop this? Like,
We
say for
go-
example, everybody did, kind of wake up to this.
Can I give you guys a
And-
beacon of hope?
Yes.
Yeah. Please.
So just today,
Mm-hmm.
right now, as we speak, the WHO is having their meeting, their annual meeting. And so a lot of very, let's say, important decision makers are there, and they're trying to implement the WHO pandemic treaty, which is now being called the Accord, which we talked about last week. And Tedros, the head of the WHO today, was just really, really trying to appeal to the people there. They're treaty or accord is falling apart. And so they're in their kind of last ditch effort trying to get people to sign on to this for their countries. And it seems like it's not going to happen. There's enough backlash against what they're trying to institute, and a lot of it is too much domination by the WHO and the UN by proxy. So
Can I say something?
yes.
I appreciate your efforts of giving us hope. Okay. But as we learned at the beginning of this episode, 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah.
So
I love you, Ash, but I'm with Suze on this one.
I don't necessarily think this is a win. I think it's a hopium situation. Like, oh look, everything's fine, but no, everything's not going to be fine.
The good thing is that enough people are waking up that there is pushback at least, and this is what we're dealing with there.
Right, but
And
then
so instead of it, I really did assume that it would just get adopted and that was it, because in Canada there's no pushback whatsoever except for Leslyn Lewis. But I mean, you didn't hear anybody else talking about it except for her. She's a conservative MP, and so to me that was very terrifying, because it's like, oh God, we have no pushback here. Canada is getting, they're just going to adopt this treaty or accord. But there's enough pushback around the world by other countries that even if Canada is all in, it doesn't matter, because the accord can't go forward if enough countries don't sign on. So there I think there really is something there, that there's enough countries that are like, wait, what the fuck? No, we're not doing this. We're not signing our country onto this. So it's not perfect.
But they will just find another way to, convince the masses of whatever it is they need to do.
Well, we need more people. We need more people to wake up so that we can hit the 100th monkey effect.
Well,
that's what we need.
They are looking like complete tyrants now, so it's hard for people not to wake up, even if they're the sleepiest of sheep.
Except for my mom.
Yes, except for Tammy's mom's gonna hold out to the end.
She is 100%. Well,
so I just wanted to mention something quickly, because Tammy, you had mentioned earlier about them erasing history, and I had a conversation with White Wabbit yesterday while I was having a barbecue at his house, and we were talking about his prediction that he thinks come the mid-June, he actually gave a pretty specific timeline. Basically he said, he's like, I think somewhere between June 6th and June 14th, we're going to be hit with like a massive blackout, in a sense, of technology. And what he actually thinks is going to come from that, like how they're going to implement it, is by blaming it on the solar flares, because the solar flares are like on the way back around, right? And they're like picking up power or whatever, however he was trying to explain it to me, right? And which would then, basically he thinks that they're going to use like an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse, right? Which could fry all electronics, fry all the stuff you find online. Like everything would be permanently gone if they used that, right? And that's basically a nuclear weapon, right? But then blame it on the solar flares.
That's what I thought was going to happen during the eclipse, because they were turning on CERN and all that shit. So
I actually sent a video about it. I don't know, like Wabbit sent it to me. I sent it to you, Jamie. But I haven't watched the video yet, so I don't know if it's like about that prediction specifically. It's called Superstorm Sunspots Have Returned. So I don't know if like that's kind of ties in with what he's trying to say, or if it's just the fact that these solar flares are coming back. But anyways, I'm kind of freaked out about that. Like, I feel like this is something totally plausible, because and like it would be intentional, but blame it on the solar flares, and then everything is fucking gone. And then it just ties in with what you were saying, Tammy, about like erasing history, erasing everything they want to erase.
Well, if I wasn't going to bed with existential dread tonight, I am now. Thank you.
So basically, I've decided that with like all the shit that I have stored, like my laptop, everything, I've decided I'm going to keep it in my microwave from June 6th to June 14th.
I always unplug my laptop, so they're not
No,
getting mine.
apparently that wouldn't matter, even if it's unplugged. Like it won't matter.
It'll be
if
the
it's, like,
central systems, the mainframes.
yeah, exactly. And that's what would get fried and like wiped out. or
How will
whatever.
we podcast?
We won't.
We need our own mainframe.
Oh,
Ham radio, baby. Ham radio.
I know. I thought we were going on the road on tour. Isn't that what the plan
yeah,
was?
we're fucked now. Dave, because we are nearing 8:00. Anything left that you would like to share with the audience?
No, just go follow me everywhere, go watch me everywhere, and then just as far as how you battle it, just start at a local level. The goal is concentration of power. So start at a local level, stop it there, keep the information flowing, and just always just check every door. You know, just don't go down one pathway. Check every single one.
Question everything.
Yeah.
You know what we should do?
Go on
We
tour.
should infiltrate Skull and Bones for the good, like Care Bears.
Like Care Bears.
Well, now that you've told them what we're going to do,
Oh, I got the perfect Care Bear photo.
That's
for
not my strong suit.
Suze, any final thoughts for you?
I got so many concerns.
Also me.
I really just want the aliens to come get me because I feel like that I'm not feeling hopeful. I'm not right
Yeah,
now.
if I see a UFO, I'm chasing it down. That's where I'm at.
Can you then ask it to come pick me up?
Yeah, I'm gonna try CE5 protocol tonight again.
Awesome.
I'll do it with you, and both of us doing it far apart should add to the effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Exactly. Ash, any final thoughts for you?
Well, I actually feel more hopeful than anyone else here, I think, just because
Because you're a recovering liberal? Is that why?
this
Just joking.
I think that this just explains so much that, I mean, yeah, they've infiltrated a lot of our institutions. We already kind of knew that, though. It kind of helps to see that there is some sort of a centralized force, you know, some different agencies and you know, I don't want to say clubs, that sounds silly, but you know, that are behind all of this. And so I don't know, it just at least puts like a little bit of a face to the evil in a way. And so it helps me be able to wrap my head around it. So it makes me
That's
feel
fair.
more hopeful than this just weird, chaotic, what the heck is happening in our world? It's like, oh no, you have evil forces, and this is what they've been doing. They've been doing it for centuries, and yeah, they're kind of succeeding, but we're also waking up to it. So we have a lot of fail safes in place within our democracies that hopefully, as long as we keep pushing back, there's a possibility. I'm not being like completely full of hopium, but there's a possibility that if we just keep pushing back, especially if we act locally, we can maybe try and I don't know, fight this a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. I'm probably retarded.
Yeah, like I get what you're saying. My thing is like the amount of people that are waking up and need to actually be willing to stand up and do something about it.
Yeah,
and not
And
just be
therein
like,
lies
okay,
the problem.
yeah, like
Yeah.
oh, I know what's going on, I see it, but I'm just gonna let somebody else take care of it. And
Yeah.
too many people do that. That's the problem. So more people need to not do that. And be
True.
like, okay, I'm going to stand with you. I'm going to walk with you now. I'm going to do this with you now and not just like watch you do it.
Yeah. Ash, you're up next week. What's going on?
And I think we're going to have a very super special guest on next week. Someone we all know and love. And her
What?
name is Tammy.
Oh, hey.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
So Tammy and I were talking yesterday. We were trying to get the since we added video to the podcast, I'm having a hard time putting it out on Twitter. So anyways, we were chatting on the phone, and Tammy has a bunch of awesome guests that are booked for the next few of her hostings. But Tammy has been doing a ton of research on the Picton Farms and Robert Picton. And with all of the new things that have been developing, especially with him getting stabbed by a broom spear in the head and now being brain dead, it seems like a very important thing to be able to talk about while so many relevant things are going on. And so I said to her, like, I feel like we need to talk about this now and not, 3 guests from now when she gets the chance to do it. So I asked if she would come on and we could discuss it during my hosting, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about with it. So, Tammy,
Yeah,
do you have
I'm super
anything to
pumped.
add?
I'm into this.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I know a lot of people have been kind of writing and asking us to do an episode on this. So I think it's a fun way that maybe, and Ash, you always have really good questions, Sue, so do you. So I think it's a good way for maybe any questions that people have to get asked. And I know Eric St. Pierre will be super happy because he's been asking for us to do an episode. So shout out to Eric. And then before we go, I do want to give a very special shout out to I actually just got a puppy this weekend.
Yay.
And I want to give a very special shout out to a lady named Lori, who I got my puppy from. Her and I got talking when I first went to go and pick him up, went to go see him. And we had this amazing conversation about how she had kind of woken up to things.
Shout out to Lori.
Oh, it's Lorrie, but that's cool too. Anyways, she is an awake human. And when I went to go pick him up on Friday, she was like, I love the show so much. I'm addicted to it. I wish you guys would do 2 episodes a week. I'm just always waiting for the next episode. And so I wanted to share that with the group because I thought that was such an awesome compliment.
Oh, thanks, Lori.
And just thank her for listening. And she told me she's been telling everybody to listen to the podcast. So just to show some appreciation, I just wanted to shout out Lori.
Thanks for the support, Lori.
We love you, Lori. Oh, good job, Jamie. You spelled it right. Good job.
Thank you. Thanks, Lori.
And on that note, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see everybody next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.